This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 6th of November 2019 and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am GK.
I have something fun for you guys today. It's not a today in history, but it happened today.
Yes.
Today, President Uhuru Kenyatta officially launched STAWI, which is the loan fund for SMEs.
Yes, for SMEs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do we need a Huduma number to qualify?
I hope we don't, because then I don't qualify.
What's the number? We haven't gotten them
I
yet.
don't remember.
Which number?
Anyway, well, we're very proud of this fund.
Yes, we are.
It should create some...
Absolutely. Some money in the pocket.
Yeah,
There
some money in the pocket.
should be a stimulus package for us.
That's
Exactly.
very true.
Yeah.
So in the headlines, in case you missed them, The Standard, we've destroyed Kenya, says Uhuru's MP. The Star, 40 constituencies could be scrapped after 2019 census. And in the Daily Nation, point of no return in NASA's bitter fallout. Shall we begin with
Yes.
The Standard.
Moses KURIA?
Yes. A context of this. Moses KURIA yesterday in a TV interview, he literally blamed Parliament and the executive for the economic slowdown that you're having. First, he said it is Parliament is to blame for the interest rate cap that Parliament enacted, I think, sometime in 2016. But he also blamed the executive, particularly former Minister C.S. Rotich and P.S. Duge, for actually cooking books, not my words, his words, for cooking books of accounts and actually saying...
cheating Kenyans about the state of economy.
And Parliament about the state of our coffers. And
he went so far as to say that he also then blamed the president and said that it was tantamount to treason what he's done.
That they need to apologize to Kenya.
Exactly.
He actually said it's Rotich and Duge who should be charged with treason. But you see, there's something about KURIA that I'm starting to like. Number one, I actually think he's executing a scheme himself. Number one, I will actually talk about his dressing. Moses KURIA looks impeccable these days. That doesn't look like a guy from Kiambu.
Oh, excuse you. We apologize to the people of Kiambu.
Second, I actually think what he's doing is taking the oomph away from his contemporaries, Anwegoro and I think Mainaka.
Oh, he's trying to steal some of the limelight for himself?
Yes.
Well, the truth is, whenever Moses KURIA speaks, people pack up and listen, whether they agree with him or not. And on this time, I think a lot of people he resounded with him.
Absolutely.
I'm glad he's pointing out some of the faults. I think in the art of war, they say this is the act of fighting, entering the enemy's space and you know, weakening them without really fighting.
Because what was confusing about this headline is we've destroyed Kenya, says Uhuru's MP. So I mean, I think we're used to the opposition coming out and saying that the president has done this, that, and the other. But for somebody in his own camp to come out and say it himself,
absolutely. And I mean, I think it's actually part of a scheme.
It could be.
Which I hope doesn't backfire.
Yes, and I actually don't think Moses KURIA is going at Uhuru. And what he's actually doing is he knows Uhuru will be blamed for this. So what he's actually doing is, instead of creating two sides, back and forth, he'll say, yes, the people who are actually to blame for the economic mess that we are probably seeing is Treasury, not necessarily the president. So by the time the
opposition,
propagandists are talking, the oomph has been taken away from them.
And the legislature needs to take some responsibility. If they were passing bills and things that don't make sense, then responsibility should be taken. So we have a three-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
I think it's a good headline. It makes you do a double take.
You're like, who are these people? Definitely. In the Star, 40 constituencies could be scrapped after the 2019 census. We alluded to this yesterday.
We touched on it. So what we know is that 27 constituencies had been protected prior in 2009. But now we're seeing that with the new census, there's an additional more that add up to that 40 that 11. Could be scrapped away.
Because they don't meet the population quota.
However, as we mentioned yesterday, according to Article 89 of the Constitution, there's some special occasions that might allow for some of those constituencies which don't meet the threshold. They become exempt to being scrapped away. I think it's still too early to tell what will happen.
But by the way, IBC should not shy away and they should actually scrap these 40 constituencies very, very fast. I've argued before that this country is overrepresented. We don't need all this number of MPs.
And I'm all about economies of scale. Some smaller constituencies can actually benefit from being part of the larger country. So
I think until we know what's happening, I think we can toss this headline.
Okay, toss. In the Daily Nation, the point of no return in NASA's bit of fallout. I think it's not a big secret that NASA has been dead for quite some time now.
Absolutely.
In fact, I don't know why they have not carried out a burial or a funeral ceremony. But basically, the story just goes into why the Sunday rally, where ODM, Raila was there with the Kamba Alliance, which was Kifutha, Gilu, and Alfred Mutua. And you know, missing was Kalonzo Musyoka. So basically just pointing more to the separation that has happened. And the rift that originated from this 4.2 billion that ODM as a party has said that it will not share with NASA coalition members.
Yes, and these are the effects of the handshake. And I think what Uhuru Kenyatta has actually created, and I'm going to say something crazy, he's actually created a couple of mini vice presidents.
Oh, wow.
Vice president number 1 is Ruto, vice president number 2 is Raila, or they can actually interchange. Vice president number 3 is Musalia, vice president number 4 is Kalonzo. Literally, it's just a league of vice presidents.
Well, and for me, I'm like, the politics of coalitions is what Kenya is about. So it should not be bitter. In 2022, you can
you come together, you fall apart.
This is not your enemy for a long time. I think we can say that for sure.
Absolutely.
I think between the two headlines, I would still pick the Standard.
I think we go with the Standard. Right?
Fantastic.
So we have a winning headline from the Standard. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Gado has a drawing, a caricature, and I think they're in a dog pound, a caricature of Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, the prince, and Kalasinga himself, William Ruto, and they are all feeding the dogs, right?
With census meat.
Yes, so Raila and Uhuru are feeding one dog that has been demarcated with the fence election 2022. And him is feeding them bones from census 2019, and the dog is eating it, is loving it. But then Ruto is feeding the other dog in the 2022 pound, and that one looks like a mongrel.
Oh my gosh. But however, behind them...
behind them poor, starving Kenyans.
It says jobs, power, education, water.
And their bowls are empty.
They're empty. And Gado's little guy there is saying, don't just stand there, clap. As though they deserve to have a round of applause for the things that they have done.
I think Gado is being a bit too pessimistic. I mean, we have a census. Can't we just enjoy that for 2 minutes?
I think that people are forgetting to celebrate that very few countries manage to have a census where the results are released within 3 months.
Absolutely.
We should be applauding ourselves for that.
And look at it again. A census is a constitutional thing. I mean, what would it be if it was an election? I mean, I think it's very pessimistic.
I think that we can toss that instantly, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Ndula of the Daily Nation.
Yes, caricature of MK himself, Moses Kuria, and he's in a kitchen, and behind the curtains he's tasting the soup that they've all cooked, and he's saying yak. In the background is Jubilee Star Awards. That is, I think, no, this is Rotich, and that's Uhuru Kenyatta in the chef's hat, and he's pouring some spices, and that is William Ruto pouring some coins.
I think we call them like they're doing the Salt Bay.
Absolutely, but they're doing the Salt Bay thing. But William Ruto is Salt Bay coins.
Yes.
Are they coins or herbs?
Well, they're cooking the economy, aren't they?
Okay.
Yes, and inside the sufuria called economy is a calculator. And I think this has to do with what Moses Kuria said yesterday, that Treasury is actually guilty of cooking numbers.
However, it doesn't also allude to the fact that because he's peeking through the curtain, he was also privy to what was going on behind it. So he's saying yuck to the public, yet we know that he was there as it was going on.
Part of it,
He's actually a member of the Budget Parliamentary Committee.
Well, they say a man always has a reason for has 2 reasons for doing something. A good reason and then the real reason. Well, not bad, but whatever one.
Reason.
So hopefully that will unfold.
I think there's a great cartoon.
The good thing is he apologized.
All right, finally, Ozone.
Finally, is a caricature of William Ruto salivating, and also Raila Odinga salivating as well, and they're salivating on a pair of specs. And on
it's the
two
census
frames,
calculator.
Yes, on the two frames. One frame is labeled votes, the other one is labeled 2022. And they're actually mimicking the calculator. And the caption there is the numbers through political lenses.
Yeah, I think he's just suggesting that while the rest of the public is looking at the census calculator as pure numbers, these guys are seeing the census as the road to 2022.
And rightly so, they are political animals. However, of the two cartoons, I still like the Moses KURIA and
definitely. I feel like we said Ozone has done this before when we were talking about Huduma number. I think it's a borrowed cartoon, not very smart. Can we just...
So there you have it. We have a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation.
Yes. Absolutely.
What is our final thought?
Now our final thought. It's inspired by a book entitled The House of Morgan by Ron Chernow.
Yes.
Sounds like a Kale guy.
He's the same guy we read yesterday.
Yes, the same guy from yesterday, from Titan.
Yeah.
So yes, as you said, The House of Morgan, and the subtitle here is An American Banking Dynasty and the Rise of Modern Finance, written in 1990. So this book traces the history of the Morgan banking empire, while also giving an insight into the birth of modern finance as we know it today. So while most biographies into the House of Morgan, or J.P. Morgan himself, will focus on his death in 1913, Chernow in this book really looks at the House of Morgan in its entirety, from the mid-19th century all the way up until the early 1900s. So the family has existed for almost 150 years in totality. So the House of Morgan actually didn't begin with J.P. Morgan himself, but actually began with his father. His name was Junius Morgan. I'm not so sure. In 1837. So he actually worked for another man called George Peabody, who started this bank, and then eventually they became partners. So at this time, just for some context, the U.S. was known as a creditor nation. So they were heavily dependent on foreign investment for industrial development. And so American banks had a lot of their HQs in the UK because that was the best way to get close to money.
Absolutely.
And moreover, if we look at banking culture, it was dictated by what the author coins, the Gentleman's Banker's Code. And according to this, bankers did not seek out clients. You didn't go out looking for people to give you money. You actually waited for them to come to you. They would only accept a client if the former banker had given no objection to do so. And lastly, bankers did not advertise their services outside their doors. So you wouldn't walk by Barclays and say, this is Barclays. So what you find is that J.P. Morgan then joins his father in 1857 and they start banking together. But his father was representative of this Gentleman's Banker's Code. He was known very well and very respected as an honorable man. And it would be his son, J.P. Morgan, who would earn the title of robber baron. We mentioned this yesterday, the people who got their money through unethical means. But more importantly, J.P. reflected the growing importance of American financial power. So he played a very crucial role in the development and financing of a lot of American industrialization. And I think we'll talk about that, like the roads and the other big companies.
Absolutely.
So just a few tidbits. By the 1900s, the J.P. Morgan Bank had half of the railroads in the USA under their control. You're saying half of a huge country like that. And then there's this term called Morganization that was used to describe how J.P. Morgan would take over troubled businesses, reorganize them, that's why it was called Morganization, and then he would make them profitable. And today, J.P. Morgan, the bank, is still one of the biggest banks in the world. I think it's the fourth biggest bank in the world and the biggest bank in the USA. And adjusted for inflation, they say that J.P. Morgan would have been worth about 49 billion. You said today. That's not that much. If we look at...
I mean, yes, but again, if he lived until now...
he would be very, very wealthy.
Probably be like Rockefeller.
And one interesting thing is that unlike his contemporaries, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, he never deemed himself to be self-made. He always admitted, I came through my family. So that's just a little bit about him.
Absolutely. This man was a Kigoya a bit here. Kigoya is a scared person. And I'm saying that because he refused to be drafted in the American military when they're fighting, when they're doing the Civil War.
Self-preservation is okay.
Yes. but you see, actually it was not, he was actually a very pragmatic person. And what he actually did, so that he's not drafted in the military, he paid $300 for somebody else to be actually drafted. But the reason they did that is because of this. The Morgans were scared that they would lose business during the times of war.
Yeah.
Now, they were actually trading in cotton with Europe. And who was the main who are the main laborers in cotton in America?
The slaves,
African
African
Americans. So he was not doing it because of human needs. It was selfish gain. But, I mean, he was a businessman.
Yeah.
But second thing I want to say is because of this. James Mwangi, if James Mwangi reads the history of J.P. Morgan, he will not be very happy. And the reason I'm saying that is because of this. J.P. Morgan bank employees were actually called, they were told that they had $1 million smiles.
Yeah.
But they only had $1 million smiles because if you had $1 million in the account, that's when they gave you a smile.
And if you didn't have it, you were not smiling. And listen, and that's how James Mwangi sort of disrupted a whole industry, right? He looked to those people who Barclays would never take.
Exactly.
Standard Chartered didn't give time of day. He decided, you know what, I'm going to be the bank for everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
And rightly so.
Absolutely. But also the reason these people made it was because America at that time in the 1880s and 1890s, what we had actually called today a night watchman state. And a night watchman state is that which provides security to its people, provides courts, so that it can protect people's properties. But that's it. And I'm saying that because they did not have a central bank. Now, J.P. Morgan and the other financiers, they were so wealthy that they actually bailed out the American federal government twice. First in 1895, where they actually gave the American federal government $60 million in cash to save them from a recession. But the second one was the second bailout. Do you know they had a meeting at these guys' J.P. Morgan's sitting room, dining room, to actually agree what sector they are going to save. And I sit down and I ask myself, these guys are actually, they had overtaken the state. They were probably more
private industry.
Than the state. You know, I mean, some stuff shocking.
Interesting things. So the more interesting things about him. So Piermont Morgan, or J.P. Morgan, was actually very into solitaire. So it was interesting to watch because apparently he would, during this bailout, so they're all in the room, he gets 50 bankers and he says, listen, there's a panic going on, there's going to be a run on the banks, how do we solve it? He puts them in the library and closes the door and he says, figure it out, and he goes to play solitaire. So he did this a lot when he was thinking about really crucial problems. It was his way of sort of using procrastination to free up other things in his mind and think of solving these problems. And he came back and he actually was the reason why American economy decided that they needed a Federal Reserve System. So they were like, it's too much to have one person have all this power, this summoning power of all these banks. And it sort of mirrored what happened in 2008 with the global financial crisis. When the Fed Reserve called the big banks and said, listen, we're about to have a crisis. How do we solve it? How much is each of you bringing to the table? Right? So it mirrored that kind of scenario. The other thing is that he was actually behind the company that put together the guys who financed the Titanic in 1912.
He had that much money.
He had that much money, right? But people say that the Morgans never reached the level of wealth that the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts did. However, he was instrumental in art and culture and really, you know, collected these things. In fact, he was a collector of yachts, right? And so his friends would ask him, oh my God, so how much did this cost? And he would respond and say, if you have to ask how much it costs, then you can't afford it. So he was also full of braggadocio. So it was really interesting for me. It was very interesting to see how one person, growing up in the Gilded Age, and the Gilded Age is this period where there's a lot of political corruption, financial misdealings and whatnot.
But also rapid growth in so many different industries. And I think so much of this we were discussing mirrors the equity, as we're saying, the James Mwangi, what he's doing. This man is creating a corridor of banking and money access throughout East Africa all the way down to South Africa. And I think it's so interesting to watch it. We might be going through some of those, you know, those similar things.
Game changing.
That's so true.
It is time that we have our own J.P. Morgan here.
There you go. The House of Equity. So on the day we had a winning headline from the Standard. We've destroyed Kenya, says the News and Peace, and a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation. I want to say this. J.P. Morgan once said, the first step towards getting somewhere is to decide that you are not going to stay where you are. So get moving, decide where you're going, and just
and get that Stawi loan.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Paying Free to Air, and Star Times. Have a good evening.